Liam wandered through the empty house. His footsteps echoed. Each room held a memory, each one a stab of pain. His wife Mary was gone. The life they built shattered. Only silence remained. He ran a hand across the back of the living room couch. The worn fabric held the imprint of Mary's presence. He could almost picture her there, a book in her hand, her laughter echoing around them. Now only shadows danced in the corners. Upstairs their son Gary slept. Unaware of the chasm of loss that had opened, Liam yearned to hold his son close, to shield him from the pain. But Liam himself felt lost in grief. How could he comfort when his own heart shattered? The silence of the house pressed in on him, a suffocating weight. Liam retreated to the porch swing. The night air was cold, mirroring the icy grip of his sorrow. A single tear traced a path down his cheek. He was alone. Dawn painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. Liam walked the fields, his boots sinking into the damp earth. The farm had always been his solace. Now it was his lifeline. He worked mechanically, planting seeds, each push into the soil a small act of defiance against the gaping hole in his life. The sun rose higher, warming his back. Sweat beaded on his forehead. For a while the rhythm of work quieted the turmoil within, but the house still loomed at the edge of his vision, a constant reminder of his loss. The silence followed him, even into the barn. The scent of hay and the gentle lowing of cattle couldn't drown it out. Each evening, Liam would cook dinner for Gary. They would eat in silence, the weight of unspoken grief hanging between them. Gary's once bright eyes were now clouded with confusion and fear. His laughter, once a constant melody, was now a rare and precious sound. Gary was too young to understand death, but he understood absence. His mother was gone, and his father, lost in his own sorrow, seemed a million miles away. He would cling to Liam's leg whenever he tried to leave the house, his small hands gripping tight as if he could hold back the tide of grief that threatened to engulf them both. His nightmares were filled with shadowy figures and the echo of his mother's fading laughter. Liam, lost in his own pain, often felt his patience wear thin. He would pry Gary's fingers loose, his voice sharper than he intended. The hurt in his son's eyes mirrored his own. But still, the chasm between them grew. Gary began hoarding his toys, refusing to share, clutching them close as he drifted off to sleep. They were the only things that felt constant in a world that had been turned upside down. His possessiveness was a shield, protecting him from further loss. The days blurred into weeks, then months. Liam navigated the motions of parenthood, but the joy was gone. Every task felt like an insurmountable burden. The weight of his grief compounded by the responsibility of raising Gary alone. He yearned for someone to share the load, someone to offer a kind word or a shoulder to cry on, someone to help him make sense of the overwhelming silence that had become his constant companion. He tried to be strong for Gary, to be both mother and father. But his own pain often eclipsed his son's needs. The laughter and joy that once filled their home seemed like a distant memory. The farm, once his sanctuary, now felt like a prison. The endless cycle of chores, a constant reminder of all he had lost. He was drowning in grief, and he feared he was taking Gary down with him. Section 5. A flicker of hope in Amelia. Amelia arrived like a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day. A friend of a friend, she offered a sympathetic ear and a warm smile. Liam found himself drawn to her gentle nature and easy laughter. She was patient with Gary, coaxing him out of his shell with stories and games. For the first time since Mary's death, Liam felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could be a family again. Amelia moved in slowly, her presence a balm to the raw wounds in their hearts. She brought with her the scent of fresh flowers and the sound of music. The house, once shrouded in silence, began to echo with life again. Liam clung to Amelia like a lifeline. He convinced himself that she was the answer to their prayers, the missing piece that would make their family whole again. He was blinded by his own need for healing, unable to see the subtle shadows lurking beneath the surface. As the months went by, a change came over Amelia. Her initial warmth towards Gary cooled. She grew distant, her attention focused elsewhere. Her social life blossomed, filled with charity luncheons and garden parties. Liam and Gary rarely factored into her plans. She pushed Liam to hire a housekeeper, relegating Gary to the care of a stranger. The house was immaculate, but devoid of warmth. The scent of cleaning products replaced the aroma of baking cookies. Laughter was replaced by the hushed tones of polite conversation. Gary, once again, felt invisible. His toys were relegated to a corner, his presence an inconvenience. Amelia's smiles were reserved for Liam and the carefully curated image of their perfect life she presented to the world. Liam, blinded by his own happiness, remained oblivious to the growing rift. He revelled in Amelia's social successes, basking in the reflected glow of her accomplishments. He failed to see the silent tears Gary cried each night, clutching his worn teddy bear in the darkness. The news of Amelia's pregnancy reverberated through the house. Liam was overjoyed, his heart swelling with love for his unborn child. He showered Amelia with attention, catering to her every whim. The nursery was prepared with loving care, every detail meticulously planned. Gary watched from the sidelines, his small heart twisting with a confusion he couldn't articulate. His father, once distant but present, was now completely absorbed in Amelia and the impending arrival of his sibling. Jason arrived, a healthy baby boy with his mother's eyes and his father's smile. Liam was smitten, his love for his son instantaneous and all-consuming. He doted on Jason, showering him with affection and attention. Amelia, now a mother herself, seemed to awaken from her self-imposed cocoon, but her affection was reserved solely for Jason. Gary was relegated to the periphery, a ghost in his own home. Gary retreated further into himself. His once bright eyes grew dull, his smile a rarity. He found solace in books, losing himself in fantastical worlds where families were whole and love was unconditional. His toys remained untouched, gathering dust in the corner. He no longer bothered trying to engage his father or Amelia. Their indifference had become a tangible thing, a wall he couldn't penetrate. Meals were eaten in silence, Gary's presence acknowledged with a perfunctory nod. His nightmares returned, fueled by the fear of abandonment that gnawed at his insides. Liam, consumed by his new family, remained oblivious to Gary's silent suffering. He saw his son's withdrawal as a phase, a natural consequence of welcoming a new sibling into the family. He failed to see the depth of his son's pain, the silent cry for help echoing in the empty spaces of their home. The once lively home was now filled with a different kind of silence, the silence of unspoken pain, of neglected emotions, of a child's heart slowly breaking. Gary became a shadow, flitting through the halls unseen, unheard. His laughter, once the soundtrack of their lives, was now a distant memory. In its place, a heavy silence settled, seeping into the very foundation of their home. The echoes of Mary's love faded further with each passing day, replaced by the emptiness of a family fractured beyond repair. Liam, blinded by his own happiness, remained deaf to the silent cries of his son's heart. He had sought solace in Amelia, but in doing so, he had unwittingly condemned Gary to a fate worse than loneliness. He had condemned him to a life lived in the shadows, forever haunted by the ghosts of a love he could never replace.